Everest or Everest? Were Norgay and Hillary really the first two to summit? Do you call it Sagarmatha, Chomolungma, or Everest? I am your host, Pauline Reynolds-Nuttall of the All About Everest podcast since 2021. Join me weekly for all things Mount Everest, including updates, features, interviews, trivia, and so much more. It doesn't matter if you are an adventurer or an armchair mountaineer. There's something here for everyone as long as you love the mountain. As an outdoorsy person, I am always looking to up my outdoor game. I have two favorite products that I've discovered in the last couple of years, and they are kind of my go-to. The first one is the Nomadic Outdoor subscription box. It starts at $29.99 and they have monthly and quarterly plans. I have discovered cool outdoor brands by getting this box and brands that I would never have purchased on my own, including introductions to gear that I didn't even know existed. It's a great way to get new affordable gear and discover new brands as well. Check out thenomadic.com. That's thenomadic with a K.com. My other favorite product is through mymedic.com. I used to have a hard time finding the perfect first aid kit for home, the great outdoors, the car, and my short-term rental. But with MyMedic, I have found the perfect first aid kit for each of my needs and endeavors. My favorite go-to is the MyMedic Hiker Medic Kit that we use for camping, backpacking, hiking, and off-roading. You can also restock the stuff that you've used through MyMedic as well. Both links are affiliate links, and I may earn a small commission from them if you click on the links that are included in the show description.
Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of the All About Everest podcast. And today's episode is about David Brashears. Even if you've never heard of him, I bet somehow he has influenced your love for Everest without you even knowing it. One of the tributes that I read online said, "Rest in peace, Mr. Brashears. You will be missed by everyone even remotely connected to Everest." So before we get to the rest of the episode, just a couple Everest updates. As usual, and there's actually quite a bit, which I'm surprised because the spring season is over. So on the Nepali side, they are working extremely hard to clean up the mountain. This includes removing dead bodies. There are over 200 left on the mountain, with the majority of them above 26,500 feet. I'm not sure what that is in meters. I probably should have looked that up. It is extremely difficult to remove a body because of the elevation and the conditions on the mountain. A lot of the times they don't even know where everyone's body is because they have fallen. There's an avalanche and they're buried underneath. But not even that. If someone's body is in the death zone, you can't work as quickly or as well when you can't breathe. That's just how life is. And a lot of these bodies, they've become frozen to the mountain, and so you have people there chipping away. And so the individuals who go on these special expeditions to do body recovery, they are specialized. It's not like just anyone can go up there. There are some expedition companies that will go and they will try to retrieve the body of someone who has died on their team maybe, a couple years back. But for the most part, these people who are hired, they've gone through special training and they've been hired specifically to retrieve bodies. And the Nepali government's really focusing on body retrieval right now because it can be pretty traumatic to see anyone dead, but to see several dead bodies on your way to the summit. And so they feel that out of respect for those individuals and also for those who are climbing it, they need to do the best that they can to retrieve those bodies. So this year, a team of 12 recovery specialists, they were able to remove 5 bodies, including one that was complete skeletal remains. The price of body recovery is about $75 to $85K per person. It's so time consuming. They need specialty equipment and they need a large team. The 5 that were slated for recovery this year were chosen based on their proximity to the route, and all 5 of the bodies were above Camp 4. They haven't identified them yet, or at least if they have identified them, they have not released those names. It's funny what goes viral sometimes. I saw at least a dozen reposts on social media about how Mount Everest is now listed on AllTrails, the hiking app, or at least it was. Once the company realized that all of the reviews were fake and it really isn't considered a hike, it was removed. Luckily, way too many people took screenshots. Keep in mind, these are fake reviews and meant to be funny with a lot of dark humor thrown in. One of the reviews, that's a 5-star review. Great beginner hike. Started to get a little tired near the peak, but later found out that was because there was no oxygen. Crowded at the beginning, but we lost a few people along the way. Crevasses, frozen in place, an avalanche, etc. So it cleared up by the end. No Wi-Fi at the peak though, which kinda sucked. A 4-star review. Great place to get started with the outdoors. Experienced hikers practice what's called leave no trace principle, so no one even knew you were there. It's different on Everest. Turns out you just leave your crap all over the place and expect someone else to pick it up. Nobody does. O2 canisters, trashes, feces, tents, heck, even leave your friends. Only problem is that it's already full. Both the trail and the entry fee are very steep, and there's a 90-minute queue at the top. That said, it was totally worth it. Everyone in my group was just dying to take a selfie. 3-star review. Almost perfect. After a strenuous day of hiking, I realized I must have gotten off the trail a little. Apple satellite sucks. Anyway, we saw some dude lying in the snow face down and thought we'd ask him if he had an extra granola bar and some wet wipes. Rudest hiker. He just stared blankly at us with a smug, rigid grin. Realized his friends were a little further down doing exactly the same. Ugh. I'm sorry, but a little trail etiquette would be nice. We didn't come all the way from Idaho to be balked by mountain people who can't even be bothered. Besides that, the views were good, but the hike itself was pretty mid. I would have preferred K2, but they don't have it up on AllTrails, so I'll settle for Everest. Another 5-star review. Initially, when I fell, I thought I was in big trouble. Slid all the way back to base camp. It was the second most fun I've had on the mountain. Egging on Uli to fight Sherpas still. Number 1. Next year, I'm bringing my sled. Mount Everest via South Col. It's a pretty easy hike. Just bring micro spikes or trekking poles and a light jacket just in case. A few homeless camps here and there, but nothing too view disrupting, although it gets pretty crowded near the summit. Overall, 6 out of 10. Good day hike with the kids' dog, but nothing too interesting. And then another 5-star review. We dropped a car in Tibet and did this as a through hike, which added some drive time, 252 hours. The trail down the north face was not well marked. Recommend downloading the AllTrails map. Great views and no bugs. And another 4-star review. Meh, I would actually rate this trail as moderate to easy. Some scrambling near Khumbu Glacier and some sharp ice sheets and gaps filled with the bodies of Caucasian millionaires. Be sure to bring your crampons, but I did just fine in my Crocs. Bring your doggos. Stopped at the cafe at the top and ordered a double macchiato before the gondola down. So, yeah, it was funny. I saw it all over social media, and there were a couple articles that were done, including Climbing Magazine, that they talked about these reviews. I thought it was something fun. You can find a lot of these threads and reviews all over Reddit and especially Facebook if you want to go find more. Last but not least, let's talk a little bit more about Nirmal Purja, also known as Nims or Nimsdai. So there's a bunch of stuff going on with him. There have been some allegations made against him regarding sexual assault and inappropriate sexual behavior, and also how he has broken a lot of the climbing rules. And last week I had mentioned that the Department of Tourism, which is known as DOT, and every time I see DOT, I think of Department of Transportation, but it's actually Department of Tourism. I think I already bungled that up right there. But the Department of Tourism, there was one person who was trying to get him banned from even coming into Nepal, him personally. But now what it is the Department of Tourism, they want to ban him and his company from any more climbing in the Himalayas. And it's because his ethics have become questionable, his decisions regarding mountaineering, and he's breaking the rules. So, one of the biggest rules on Mount Everest is that if you're going to climb it, you have to start at the bottom and make your way all the way to the top. There's no skipping. And so many people have talked about, well, if you skip the Khumbu Icefall, is it cheating? The Nepali government sure thinks that it is. And so in order to get your Everest certificate, you have to start at the very bottom at the base camp and make it all the way to the top. Apparently, last year, a climber hired him, Rochelle Gilmore, 42 at the time. I don't know if that's her age now. And she's a professional biker from Australia. And so he illegally took her to Camp 2 from base camp in a helicopter and then proceeded to have a guide take her all the way to the summit and back. And she didn't even go below Camp 2. She went straight to Kathmandu after that. So she started halfway because of her helicopter ride, and she ended it halfway. And so the Department of Tourism is pretty upset about it. And I think the mountaineering community is as well. He claimed that she had a lot of health issues and that's why he did it, but that is breaking the rules. And there's a reason why you do it from start to finish. And so we'll see if he'll be allowed to continue to climb in the Himalaya, in Nepal, and his company as well, which is really unfortunate because if he gets banned and his company, Elite Exped, gets banned, there's a lot of people who work for him. And that's a lot of people who would lose their jobs because he chose to make poor decisions. So that's something to watch for in the next year or so and see what happens. Again, take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. All of this stuff has been reported by very reliable sources, and so it's up to you for you to decide what you think is correct or not. Personally, his achievements are amazing, but that does not justify breaking the rules. There's a reason why those rules are in place. So there's that. All right, for those following along, this week's book in the 52 Mountaineering Books and 52 Weeks list is Mad, Bad, and Dangerous by Ranulph Fiennes. He's an explorer and a mountaineer. He's summited Mount Everest, and he is a great historian and writer. He's been on many expeditions. He has written several books, including one about Shackleton and one about, it's not Alexander the Great. Lawrence of Arabia, that's who it is. Wow, that didn't even make any sense there. Lawrence of Arabia, and his books are amazing. So this book is his memoir, his autobiography. And not only has he summited Mount Everest, but he was the first person to reach both the North and the South Poles via land only. All right, next week is July 4th, and I am going on a much-needed camping trip, followed by a visit from my sister who's coming from China, and a family reunion. We're going to be camping off-roading in this place called Pipestone, and there's an area there that has ringing rocks. It's this natural phenomena, and you can hit the rocks with a hammer, and they make music. It's really quite unique. There's several places like that in the world, including the Ringing Rocks in Montana. There's a place in Pennsylvania. I think there's one or two places in Great Britain as well. So after Pipestone and the Ringing Rocks, I'm going to come home for a day or so, go out to my family's ranch out in White Sulphur Springs, and then I'm going to go up to Great Falls for a family reunion. My mom's family has a family reunion every 3 years. All of her cousins and her remaining aunts and uncles that are left. And I really hope that I can, stop at some of the roadside attractions, those museums I always pass, or I'd like to try the C.M. Russell Museum. And then in Deer Lodge, Montana, there's the old prison that has a really cool car collection. So I'd like to try both of those. Montana is so big and it has such a unique history, and it's varied too, because you have Old West history and modern history, and it's just super cool. So with all of my traveling and camping and all of that stuff, I don't know if I will be posting any episodes. I hope I will. And I've also got this family thing. I won't go into details, but my time is dedicated several hours a week to one particular family member. And hopefully this will be resolved in September. I don't think it will be, but it really takes up a lot of my time. And my little wiener dog, Ree, sweet, sweet, sweet Ree, she is about to have puppies. So I have that going on too. All right. For the rest of the episode, today's episode is about David Brashears. He passed away on March 14th, 2024, and it has greatly saddened the climbing community. His impact and contributions not only to the Mount Everest community, but the climbing community in general, and the documentary community. And he was just so phenomenal. Not only did he have the expeditions that he had, but I think personally his biggest legacy was the IMAX documentary that was filmed in 1996. So today's poll question on Spotify, and I have polls every single week. The question is, have you watched the IMAX Everest documentary? Have you? I've watched it several times, and I actually watched it when it first came out. I watched it in the theaters, and it was the first 3D movie I had ever seen, and it was phenomenal. And that is what sparked my interest in Everest and my love for this wonderful mountain. So this episode is dedicated to David Brashears. Most people know him because of the IMAX film Everest, the television program Everest, The Death Zone, and Storm over Everest. David Brashears in his lifetime contributed much more to the Everest community, well beyond just his documentaries. He had many mountaineering achievements, especially when it came to Mount Everest. David was born on December 20th, 1955 in Fort Benning, Georgia, and he died on March 14th, 2024 in Marblehead, Massachusetts. He is survived by one son. Brashears had a rough childhood, and his mother moved the family to Colorado after his dad up and left them. He started climbing in high school and never graduated college. He's one of those people that was self-made, and he proved that to do great things and big things, you don't have to graduate college. He was the first person to transmit live pictures from Everest in 1983 and performed the first live webcast in 1997. He was the 135th person to reach the summit. He had 8 Everest expeditions, summited Mount Everest 5 times, and was there during the 1996 Everest disaster, because that is when they filmed the IMAX documentary. And his team, they went up a couple of days after the 1996 Everest disaster. Brashears was the one who guided Richard Bass to the summit of Everest in 1985 and became the first American to summit Mount Everest twice. And he is mentioned several times in the new book that came out last month, Everest Inc. There were tributes to him all over the media and online, including on Outside Online, The Today Show, Legacy.com, and all over social media and the internet. And I just wanted to kind of touch base here and read a little excerpt from Legacy.com. For most people, reaching the summit of Mount Everest should be once-in-a-lifetime achievement. Brashears did it 5 times out of 8 expeditions overall. He reached the famous peak for the first time in 1983. He did so again 2 years later and became the first American to summit Everest twice. When he returned to the peak in 1996, he did so with IMAX cameras, another first. His efforts resulted in the film Everest, a 1998 film that became the highest-grossing documentary in the IMAX format. Brashears also broadcast the first live audio webcast from the summit in 1997 during the making of Everest, the Death Zone for Nova. He also took part in the 2008 Frontline documentary, Storm Over Everest, and contributed to Hollywood films such as Cliffhanger and 7 Years in Tibet. Brashears was the founder of the nonprofit group Glacier Works, which works to spotlight climate change. He co-authored High Exposure, An Enduring Passion for Everest and Unforgiving Places with John Krakauer, and both Kilimanjaro to the Roof of Africa and Last Climb, the legendary Everest expeditions of George Mallory. He was also the director of the travel firm Destination Himalaya. So there were a lot of really touching tributes to him made all over social media. Some of those included from Kenton Cool, "We lose one of the good guys of Everest." R.I.P. David Brashears, climber, filmmaker, environmental campaigner. Another one from Kieran McGlynn, "Sweet dreams, David Brashears. You captured Everest in all her glory, risked your own life to try to save others when the mountain was at her most volatile, and paved the way for others through your work, of which I watch so often. May you dream softly now." Ed Douglas, "Shocked to hear that David Brashears has died. They didn't come much bigger in the worlds of mountain filmmaking or high altitude climbing, but more than that, he could be extraordinarily kind." And he just contributed so much with his writing, with his filmmaking. And from what I've heard from people that knew him, he was one of the kindest people that they had ever met. So you can find his obituary. There's 2 obituaries on legacy.com. There's a very touching article on Outside Online, and I'll put those links in the show notes, which you can find on my website. That is it for today's episode. The plans for the next 3 episodes are, I think, if I get them done, because the next 2 weeks are going to be so crazy. Like, I've got grandkids. I've got my grandson, I've got camping, I've got traveling, I've got family coming from overseas. I've got so much going on. I don't even know. But the plans for the next 3 episodes, and I'm pretty sure I'll have them posted. I'm almost 100%. So, and not in any particular order, but the next 3 episodes are going to be a special episode for 100 years since George Mallory and Sandy Irvine breathed their last breath on Everest. I have an interview that I recorded like months ago with this Nepali guide. He's done Everest a couple of times, but really his passion is Island Peak. And then I just wanted to do a fun episode of Mount Everest trivia. And that is it for today. To those of you in the U.S., if I don't post an episode by next Thursday, happy 4th. And to all of my wonderful listeners, don't forget, climb your own climb.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the All About Everest podcast. Please support this podcast by following, rating, commenting, and sharing. I appreciate your feedback, and you can find me on social media at Mama Bear Outdoors or at All About Everest podcast. Thank you for following and listening since 2022.